Everyone, this is Terry Daniels again here at the coordinating board. We're going to go ahead and get the presentation started. I wanted to let you know before I turn it over to Dr. Morales-Bell that we are recording this session and we will make it available as soon as the recording becomes available. We will post it on the THECB website. And yesterday we received questions from the first follow-up session, and we will post the questions from that session and any that we get today on the website with the recording and also the PowerPoint presentation. So we post the recording from the session, the PowerPoint presentation, and any questions and the answers on the THECB website under the TSI link. And we will give you that actual website address at the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Terry. This is Ann Morales-Bell, Director of Developmental and Adult Education at the Coordinating Board. I'd like to welcome you to a repeat, second version of our follow-up webinar. You may know, and as you're probably quite familiar with, we have been working on this proposed operational plan and vetting it with various stakeholders across the state. And so now we just wanted to give you an update of where we are and what our next steps will be, as well as sharing some of the we've received. So for our agenda, and before I get into the agenda, I also want to welcome my colleagues. Of course, you've already heard from Terry Daniels. We have Dr. Laredo here, and Dr. Tomerlin are also here joining us. Small office here at the coordinating board as we do this webinar. So feel free not to necessarily limit your questions as they come forth. One other thing, Terry, if I had and tell everybody about how they should share questions.
And I apologize. If you have questions that you would like to submit to us, up at the very top of your screen, if you do that little drop down, there's a place where you can do the appear on the lower hand side of your screen. If you type those questions there, once we have completed the presentation, we will back and read through questions and those questions at the end of the presentation.
And in case you're wondering why we're not accepting phone questions, past experience, we have had so much distortion feedback once we opened phone lines that we thought really the best way, and also the best way to record the questions, was through the chat. So we hope that doesn't pose any sort of inconvenience for you. So agenda, we'd like to start with a little bit of background, again talking about and reminding everyone of the P16 and developmental education reform efforts. Is one or two slides on the federally funded adult education programs, formed as the ABE programs, post-secondary interventions, about the TSI assessment very briefly, the design and development, and specifically the remainder of the presentation will focus on the proposed TSI operational plan and focus a little bit more on its development. We'll get into, again, the 9 recommendations, any changes that we made as a result of feedback, and then also bring up a summary as we go through each of the recommendations of each of the comments and feedback received for each recommendation. Finally, we'll have a slide at the very end to let everyone know and update everyone of the next steps. This alignment between K-12 and higher education expectations has been going on for a long time. The efforts have been going on for a long time. Specifically, they began in the late 80s when the legislature implemented the TASK, the Texas Academic Skills Program, designed to ensure that students entering Texas public institutions of higher ed had the academic skills necessary to be successful in college credit coursework. Many of us were around, and we were familiar with the old TASK system. Then in 2003, the legislature repealed the TASK and at that point established the TSI, the Texas Success Initiative, which Alexis, at the time to offer 4 different assessment instruments, the AccuPlacer, Thea, Compass, and those were available to indicate demonstrate college readiness by entering students that were not otherwise exempt, and also institutions had the authority to raise the state minimal standards. In 2006, the legislature recognized that students graduating from high school were not necessarily doing so with the requisite knowledge and skills to be successful either in workplace or in college, and as a response, they directed TA and the grading board to create vertical teams of the Texas P-12 teachers and higher ed faculty with expertise in the 4 content areas of math, science, English, and social studies to apply the critical elements in each of those subject areas that students needed to master to be ready for life after high school. The final of this process was to settle on a single set of college readiness standards known as the College Career Readiness Standards, which were integrated into the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, the TEKS. In 2011, the Texas Legislature directed the coordinating board to take a next step by passing House Bill 1244, co-sponsored by Representative Castro and Senator West. And the passage of that bill, the board worked very quickly to begin the process of developing a new TSI assessment instrument that was aligned to the Texas College and Career Readiness Standards. The process formally in January 2012, and the work of the related to the College and Career Readiness Standards involved close collaboration and consultation with both education faculty and public school teachers. Setting and field testing started in summer 2012, and then the board finally adopted the new standards for the TSI in April during the legislative session in order to launch the assessment, which became effective fall 2013. So this assessment was developed for Texas and is aligned to the readiness standards. And it is to create a smooth pipeline that clearly aligns the expectations between K-12 and higher education faculty to better prepare students as they post-secondary training and education. As far as we're aware, is the first of its kind in the country, because not only designed to the Texas College and Career Readiness Standards, but includes a mandatory diagnostic component to develop to identify specific student strengths and weaknesses for students who do not meet the college readiness threshold. It also aligns to the National Adult Education Standards. It is computer adaptive and offered at a low cost. So, guys, for this slide, we have not yet been able to determine why these pie charts don't show the color a little bit better, but if you look very closely, hopefully you'll see that slight gray indication, which shows where the percentage of students who are exempt in each of the 3 subject areas, and note that the majority of the students are indeed exempt from the TSI assessment. I want to remind everyone that we have both academic and non-academic exemptions, the SAT, ACT, the TAC, as well as non-academic exemptions for students who are affiliated with the military, who transfer in with completed credit-bearing coursework, or are enrolling in a Level 1 certificate program. And the exemption related to Level 1 certificate program is actually currently being revised. And so if you have some questions specifically about that and how those certificate programs are classified, please contact Dr. Gary Tomerlin or Dr. Rex Peoples from the coordinating board to get more details on those proposed changes. An instrument, as we know, helps students demonstrate college readiness in reading, writing, and math. And according to the statute, this is a requirement by all new, not otherwise exempt students seeking education. Previously, our assessments, the 4 previously approved assessments, determined whether a student was college ready or not. With this new assessment, we still use the instrument to help determine whether a student has met or exceeded the college readiness threshold and then is able to enroll in any entry-level coursework without further restriction, or does not meet the readiness threshold then the student is directed into a second component of the assessment process, which involves diagnostic tests. The diagnostic tests will either be at the developmental education knowledge and skill levels, roughly 9th through 12th grade equivalents, or at the ABE knowledge and skill levels, roughly equivalent to 1st through 8th grade equivalents.